With Brennan Lee Mulligan set to take over running Critical Role, let's break down the 3 biggest changes you can expect to see in Campaign 4.
Several changes.
Before we dive into the biggest differences between Brennan and Matt Mercer as DMs, why not take a second to hit those like and subscribe buttons to help us keep these videos coming. It's free and it really helps. And then, let's talk some Critical Role. Brennan Lee Mulligan is creating the new world for Campaign 4 of Critical Role and taking Matt Mercer's place as the GM for the entire campaign, as Matt finally gets to be a full-time player. And while Brennan and Matt share a lot of similarities as Dungeon Masters or Game Masters depending on the system, there are 3 big ways that Brennan's style differs from Matt's. So what are those big differences and what could it mean for Campaign 4 of Critical Role? Let's break them down. First off, Brennan is not afraid to let his characters die. While Matt Mercer has let player characters die on occasion, going back through the main campaign of the 3 so-called deaths of player characters, 2, Vax and Mollymuck, basically got their deaths sort of invalidated as they came back in some form or another, and only really fresh-cut grass has faced permadeath, at least for now.
Even in this dark, dark cave, they make every day a smiley day. And so I just sign off and go.
Matt Mercer has said that when a character does die, he goes to the player and sees if they want to keep on playing that character, and if so, he generally finds a way to bring them back. Now, Brennan, on the other hand, has a very different policy. He basically adjusts the lethality of his setting, and then tells the players what to expect. For example, in A Crown of Candy, he told the Dimension 20 players they basically should all have a second character ready because he won't be pulling any punches. And in that campaign, he wound up killing a third of the players before the season ended. Now, that isn't to say Brennan won't pull some strings to keep characters alive if needed, but if you look back to his time as a DM in the EXU, Calamity, Downfall, and Divergent series, basically nearly the entire cast of every campaign dies, so clearly Brennan is less hesitant to pull the trigger on those character deaths, especially when it shows the characters the stakes they are truly playing for, and, leading into our second difference, when it can really twist the knife emotionally. That's right, the second big difference has to be Brennan's love of the emotional gut punch. Matt Mercer has crafted a few sad storylines to be sure, but generally he likes to react to what his players are doing, and let the players be the one to create the drama and the emotional lows and highs at his table, with his world and his NPCs sort of reacting accordingly. Brennan, as anyone who has watched Dimension 20 or his time on EXU can tell you, likes to insert moments into his story that will inflict that emotional turmoil on the players himself. His stories often involve intense betrayals, tragedy striking beloved NPCs, and brutal setbacks for the player characters. And while Brennan is amazing at bouncing off the cast's role-playing at the table, he is less hesitant to insert big story beats himself to see how they react, or in many cases, to just twist the knife and raise those stakes by taking away some goal or key resource the players need. To give you an example, while Matt was content to let Laura's role-playing and a few off-camera dice rolls dictate the fate of Imogen's mom in Campaign 3, and ultimately save her and convert her to Beltell's side, in a world where Brennan is the DM, you can easily see him having Imogen's mom betray the party, and then having them race to Ruidus to save her, only to arrive just as Ludinus has finished draining her life, to make the stakes in that fight extremely high. And that's basically the best hypothetical example of the difference we can show you. And finally, the third way Brennan differs from Matt is that Brennan is more willing to let the dice dictate what happens. While Matt Mercer never fudges the dice and often does his own big rolls as a DM in front of the DM screen, when it comes to his characters, especially if they're failing, he tends to allow them multiple, often increasingly unrelated or unlikely dice rolls to get the objective they're hoping for to happen. A great example of this is the cast trying to save Ashton at the end of Campaign 3, when he was falling from the sky after trying to sacrifice himself. Matt allowed a crazy number of rolls of often semi-unrelated skills to give them basically a dozen different rolls and chances to save Ashton from falling. And while Brennan will sometimes allow a second roll at an incredibly high difficulty if his players are really pressing him to try and get an outcome, generally he will resort to the Box of Doom, and just let the dice do what they do. Basically, Brennan has an entire mechanic, the Box of Doom, that effectively says, this dice roll will decide whatever it is you're doing, and that is that. Fail your roll? Well, you better get ready to face the consequences, because nothing will change that roll. No extra chances, no additional rolls, you just have to live with what the dice have decided, which also goes true for Brennan himself. And while Brennan doesn't do that for every roll, for important situations the box of doom almost always comes out, which is basically kind of the inverse of Matt Mercer, who tends to stick to the dice for low stakes rolls, but when something that really matters to the party shows up, he'll generally allow the players to keep rolling and rolling until they find an outcome that sort of works for the party. Now, all that said, Brennan will be running a multi-year campaign under the Critical Role umbrella for the first time, so he may adjust his style somewhat to be closer to what they would expect from Matt. But given how much the cast seems to enjoy playing with Brennan in the EXU series, or when he guest DMs in the main campaign, he could also stick to his guns and give us a very different Critical Role experience. But with a start date less than 2 months away, we won't have to wait very long to find out which way he goes. So what do you think? Are you ready for the changes Brennan as a DM could bring to Critical Role? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.